Take it away, take it away, take it away now.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now that gives me flashback.
Yes.
1992 or something. So
like
long.
for Taste the Pain or whatever. Even earlier, maybe 1989.
They still look the same age. Well, they did last time I saw them. Probably all bald
Yeah.
now. Who knows? Hello everybody, this is Quackcast number 327. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Baines. Hello, Baines.
Hello.
Hello, and us two, we two, meet together to do the Quackcast.
We too
We two
shall meet biannually.
Our secret meeting. So we're talking about flashbacks. Flashbacks. What are you meant to do?
Heavy bro.
Yeah,
What?
you're meant to go like, woo, 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 when you have a flashback. Diddle,
Yeah.
diddle, diddle.
Exactly, a dream sequence or a flash forward.
Precisely. So we did, we sort of approached the concept of flashbacks for, what was it, Quackcast number 253.
So long
Flashback to
ago.
that. Yeah. My God, ages ago.
Well, I was so young then.
But innocent as well. No longer.
Oh, I had my whole damn life ahead of me. That's what happened.
Drugs, that's what happened, Baines.
Speaking of flashbacks.
Damn acid. No, so that was narrative order in the flashback. So we're talking about like the linear nature of stories and how flashbacks can sort of shake that up a bit. But now we're just going to talk about like the story writing technique of flashbacks. And this was influenced by Tanserines news post, which was Flashback on the 3rd of June. So that was a couple of weeks ago now. And yeah, she approached the idea of how flashbacks can be done really badly. And I agree with that. Sometimes they're good, but I think in the majority of cases they're bad. But we'll get into that a bit later. Before we do that, we've got to do the featured comic. So the featured comic for this week was Will Draw for Food, which Kwae Degakse is going to talk about very shortly. So take it away.
Great title.
Yeah, it is a great title. I hope it's not serious. That's bad. Talk about minimum wage.
Yes.
Okay, take it away, Kawaii.
Hello, this is Kwae and the feature I've selected for this week is Will Draw for Food by Jim Shaw Art, and it is rated E for everyone. Will Draw for Food is a semi-autobiographical, slice-of-life, day-in-the-life comic of Jim, a hungry webcomic creator. Some pages hint at the realities of finding food that some comic creators have to experience, like having to buy raw ingredients to make bread. Several of the strips deal with the struggles of daily drawing life, like having to come up with content for a new strip. In more recent updates, Jim dives into the world of relationships when he introduces a new character, Jordan. The comic is drawn in black and white and is mostly created using digital ink. If you have ever drawn a webcomic or have a family of pet cats, then you should read Will Draw for Food by Jim Shaw Art, rated E.
And thank you very much for that, Kawaii. Will Draw for Food. All right. And next up we have the featured music that Gun Wallace has given us. And the featured music this week is called Galactic Nebula Race, which is about, space races, I think, from what I've seen. And the music he has given us, I describe it as, this is all about speed, racing, acceleration, hypervelocity. Watch those lights fly by faster and faster until they become just a single coloured blurred line, only to see your rival speed past as if you were standing still. So,
Whoa.
take it away, Mr. Gun Wallace. And that was Galactic Nebula Race by Mr. Gum Wallace. Oh, and the writer or comic creator is Picky Foo. Picky Foo. That's a loaded name.
Yeah.
All right, Flashback. So this is Tant Serene's news post. Might as well read it out. That will give us some extra content, won't it?
Sure.
Sneaky. Okay, so Tant Serene says...
Cheeky.
Yeah. She says, right now, guys, can you hear me? Can you hear me, guys? Guys? Right now, I'm drunk, so I can't write about the final part of Jung's archetypes, mainly because I don't want to make them myself. So instead, I'd like to talk about flashbacks and the methods of depicting them in comics. A flashback, of course, is a vital bracket in storytelling. The current timeline stops, the action stops, and we're taken to a point in the past to watch and experience something else. A story's timeline and progression should be respected as much as a train at full speed. It can't, shouldn't, won't be stopped with impunity. So I wouldn't decide to stop it. It should be for a damn good reason. A reason so sensational, so pivotal, so vital to the story. That one has to be experienced rather than told. That's the sheer emotional narrative oh damn it, I'm messing up here. That its sheer emotional and narrative impact will be enough to make your audience forget that you stopped their story's train speed. Therefore, flashbacks can be a double-edged sword. They can be powerful storytelling devices, but they can also be the bane of a comic, breaking up the time and sequencing to the point where the audience is lost or just loses interest. In my opinion, the proper way to do a flashback is to incorporate it in the current story in such a fashion that it adds to the current timeline, as well as inform the audience about the experiences or events of the past. You understand me, I hope, Mr. Baines. For example, a character experiences the flashback in the form of a panic attack in a social context that creates reactions from other characters and advances the story of their interactions in some manner. Or a character experiences a nightmare that relays the flashback, but also in a tint or manner that also signals to the audience what the flashback's experience means to the character in question. Or the character experiences the flashback in the form of a memory being triggered by some sort of stimulus, like the smell, or a sound, or even a piece of dialogue, thus linking the character's imminent reactions and offering context that otherwise the audience wouldn't be able to infer or be privy to. Visually, the way I've found to work for comics is to simply choose a different color coding or line work style specifically in the flashback segment, whether it be sepia tone in a full color comic or desaturated coloring in a more saturated color scheme. Shading, non-shading in a comic that normally employs that method, and it takes for the flashback to be immediately interpreted as such is a consistent break or deviance from the comic's normal format. God, you can really tell that Tance is a psychologist. She's very...
Yeah.
She's
great.
Very scientific in her language. And then she goes on to say, if I was inebriated, I would be more conscientious and provide examples to all of the above. But I am, so I hope you get to contribute yours in the comments. So that was her very well outlined
Yes.
position of how flashback should be used.
And a lovely reading that incorporated in every single accent in the human the human realm, the Earth realm.
I hope she'd notice. North African, Italian, Libyan, Tans. Yes.
Yeah, you were Russian. You ended sort of a Korean kind of thing.
Oh, yes. All Tance's favorite things.
Exactly. She's a citizen of the world, and Ozone's reading is just accentuating that.
She is. Exactly. I have the flavor of Tance on my lips.
Oh, stop it.
She tastes like souvlaki. Okay. So we have some contributions here, but should we talk about our own perspectives on flashbacks? How do you approach? I know you must be an avid user of flashbacks. I mean, geez, I'm pretty well, at least dream sequences and things, but I'm sure you've done flashbacks as well.
Yeah, I have. They are. I mean, I sort of have a thought in the future when I get go sort of going again on my comic. I say this all the time, forever. Of eventually doing full-length story flashbacks of the characters, or little 8-pagers anyway, of how various characters met and stuff like that. So far, I've done, usually it's a single-page flashback, just to say like where the characters were a long time ago. I had one where Oscar first got his job at the video store.
Yeah.
And I think it was one panel or 2 or 3 panels or something like that. And then at the bottom of the page, you just cut forward to now, where, in the early scene, he's very excited. He's really hopeful. It's his dream job, and he really hopes he'll get it. Cut to now, however many years later, and he's had the job for years, and he's depressed and bored and all this kind of stuff. I did one issue where Oscar was... he became a feral being by being lost in the woods. He became like semi-feral, and so they were trying to figure out what to do with him, and that kind of went half and half. Like I would go back, then the caption then, and I would have a little scene from his normal life, and then now a little scene from the current feral Oscar. Maybe not connected all that well in terms of theme. Like I think a flashback should contribute to the the narrative and the theme of the story, at least the theme, and, illuminate the characters and stuff like that. I kind of just did it to show what his regular life usually was, interacting with the various characters, and then how it's different now, kind of thing.
To provide context, basically, for the contrast.
Right.
Which, you had to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have to do... I mean, I felt like in a webcomic, you want people to be up to speed.
Yeah.
Even if you're posting regularly, which I was at the time, like, you want it to be interesting enough for people who are reading and remembering everything, but also people who don't remember, 6 months ago when the last story happened. You want them to have the context for what the character's life usually is. Yeah. Or at least that's what I thought anyway. I wanted it to be clear. Yeah.
You don't want them to read and think, oh, this is going to be feral territory from here on out. That's what it's about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that's what this series is about or something. It's like, what's wrong with this guy?
They've got no context for it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know how right I am or if people, but it just seems like a lot of people dip into a webcomic. You never know when they're dipping into it, kind of thing.
Well, I think that's an example of doing flashback for good reasons and doing it the right way.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you're not really... So Tance is saying... The thing that I agree with is that often flashbacks are... You're going along with the pace of a story, in an unusual linear fashion, and suddenly crash, where this thing is just being introduced from nowhere, and it can be quite a shock to the system, and it takes you out of the flow of the story. So that's what happens when it's done badly. But in your example, I mean, you do get a bit of the gear grinding in when you're sort of flicking back and forward, because it can confuse people a bit.
Right.
But as long as there is some real meaning for it, then the audience will, they'll forgive you for it, and they'll sort of work around it in their brain. It'll make sense. But yeah, sometimes
they'll go with it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it worked in this particular case. The last page of that story, so he recovers from his cartoonish version of a feral state or a traumatized state. And the last page is a panel of then with Oscar sitting there behind the counter, and the panel now is identical. So it's like he's completely back to...
So basically that is part of the humor too, which is what you need. So
yeah, it was sort of all to keep it kind of lively, keep it from getting too heavy, and then that was sort of the final thing. It was like he thought through this experience that his life would be different.
He's
and then
unchanged.
Indicate on the last page that it'll be completely unchanged. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about yourself? I know you've jumped around in time, which to great effect in Pinky TA. I remember one flashback you did.
I can't remember myself actually doing a flashback, but I have jumped in time in chapters. So I haven't well, I don't know, because I'll have to read Pinky TA again and see to make sure, because I forget what I've written. But what I have got is Pinky TA going on in a certain timeline, certain pace, blah 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 blah, and then the chapter finishes, and then the next chapter happens where, like, I don't know, 5 years in the past or 10 years in the past or something like that. And it's so I don't know if that could be counted as a flashback, but it sort of is in a way.
Okay.
So
maybe technically it's not. Yeah, maybe it's a... Yeah.
I suppose it is. But we haven't got a character like remembering back. We just have the whole thing. This is set in the past, and then...
Oh, I see. Well, I guess mine isn't either, then. It's not really a character remembering.
Yeah, well, I suppose it does count, though, And then after that, the next chapter goes back after the events of the other chapters, this, like, is forward again. And then this chapter, again, current one, is back in the past at some stage. So I suppose I do that. But...
Yeah.
I suppose I avoid the problem of, gear grinding, yanking people out of the narrative by just having it at the beginning of the narrative that we are set in there. So I don't have any, like, we end a chapter, plomp, and then we just go back in time, and that's when this is set. It's not like, we're starting a story and then you go, I remember back, and then flump. We're into another sort of narrative, which can be confusing. So I don't know if I have done any particular. Oh, I have actually. Now that I think about it, at the end of a chapter, there is some, like, it finishes chapter 8, I think it is, or chapter 6 actually, chapter 6. Or is it 8? One of those bloody chapters. It's an even number. Anything. Anyway, all the action sort of comes to a head. We have the climax, and then we have people sort of remembering what happened, and that sort of gives you a little bit of an extra insight into the other actions that happened. So, there is a sort of a flashback, but it's weird. I don't know. I don't think I handled it well, but it's just a...
It can be a nice way to, like, do a cliffhanger, right?
Yeah. It's
you cut back. You're at an intense moment, and then you cut back. That seems like that could be really effective, actually.
It could be, but it wasn't in this case.
Not in this case.
It was a very clumsy end to a story. Very clumsy. Let's just say it. Yeah. Okay. Clumsy.
I think of, like, when she mentioned flashbacks, the first one that comes to my mind, like when I read Tenz's post, is from Kill Bill Volume 2, spoiler alert. Right. So Kill Bill Volume 2, she's, the character is trapped underground. Like that guy, she's seeking revenge on the people who, almost killed her and blah, blah, blah. The 5 mercenaries, the 5 killers. And one of them gets the drop on her, buries her alive, kind of thing. She's in this horrible situation.
Huh.
At that point, you cut back, and the flashback scene is very long, and it's a whole sequence of her training, her meeting this sort of eccentric Chinese mentor character, Pai Mei, and he trains her. It's a whole training sequence kind of thing. And part of the training turns out to be the solution to her problem of being buried. Like I won't go into more detail than that. You probably know it.
Yeah.
But it's excellent, and the flashback sequence is pretty much the most memorable sequence in the movie. It sets up so many things, not just the solution to her dilemma, but kind of this mentor character and a lot of setup for later payoffs when you find out what happens to the mentor and all that kind of stuff.
Oh.
And just a really fun character too on top of it.
Yeah.
So that one worked really well. It gives you. I could see that not working in lesser creative hands. Like you sort of present your character with a problem, then you do a flashback that shows them get the solution, 2 years ago or something, and now it comes into play. I could see that being a hacky way to do things. In this case, it really worked in spades.
It was done a few times in different stories, I think. Vague recollections of that kind of thing. Well, Karate Kid famously, he does his crane kicks or whatever. He does his special punching moves, and he remembers back. Oh, the little bloody drum I was using. Oh, wax on, wax off. We have flashbacks to those kind of instances. They're not long, kind of informative ones. They're just quick flashbacks. Oh, that's why.
But they had showed us that in the movie. They were just flashing back to remind everybody in the audience.
But they are flashing back, though.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's sort of flashing back to something you've already seen.
Yeah.
That's kind of a hacky way to do it. That's the job.
It does. I was trying to remember, there is a movie where they had done that as well, but I can't think of it right now. Oh well. That's a good thing anyway. Yeah, to show someone having special skills and then showing actually how they got these special skills, or
right.
They find themselves in some kind of devilish predicament. Then you flash back to show, some kind of technique they learned to get out of it, and they use it and then they escape. Yeah, so that's a fantastic way of using them. But
can be. Again, that could be. I'm surprised that Kill Bill thing hasn't been ripped off more, and I didn't see it in a million movies after that. I haven't really seen it done all that much, surprisingly. But I could see that being a handy device for writers. That could be used well or could be used horribly.
Yes.
But, you don't see it all the time, fortunately.
Yeah, whenever a trait or trope is overused or a technique, it becomes can become hackneyed and overdone.
Yeah.
Right, so let's see what some of the people talk about before we run out of time. We have
it's cool.
M. Organ.
Morgan.
Yes, exactly. Do you want to read his out?
Sure, I'll read it as Bill Maher. I've been thinking about this impression, but I haven't even tried it yet. But I'll give it a try.
It's debuting here.
I don't understand the idea that a flashback grinds a story to a halt. The information in a story propels it forward. The author playing tricks with linear time does not stop the flow of information. So the flashback should still contain information that propels the story along.
Okay, well,
doesn't quite work because I think Morgan is right. He's not condescending enough. That voice is supposed to be extremely condescending. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I suppose that counts more for flashbacks that are done well.
Yes.
Because so many flashbacks are not done well. So I think Tanz's point was more about bad flashbacks than flashbacks being used correctly or having the correct effect. So what does Tance reply? I'll do that. Tance's reply. That is not what I said. A flashback should be doing. But you understand, Morgan, that the pitfall is pretty much the same one as in musicals. The story runs the risk of being stopped for the number to run. A flashback that isn't properly handled is a mini story within a bigger one. And in order to tell it, you need to stop what you'd been narrating up to now to go back to something else. That is not playing tricks with linear time. What you're thinking of with linear time alternatives is another board game altogether and doesn't involve flashbacks. A flashback is something a character experiences, not the narrative course in and of itself.
Yeah. Okay. So
I
understand more now. She's specifically talking about a character having a... Now that the Quackcast is almost over, I finally know what it's about.
A character having an individual flashback? Right.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But that can still propel the story forward, as Morgan says. But yeah, I think
Sure.
it can be...
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Green Mile, I think, also is bracket. The whole movie is a flashback of the character, right?
Are these just all Tom Hanks films you're coming up with here? Forrest Gump.
They might be. Yeah, exactly.
Forrest
Joe
Gump
versus the volcano.
That doesn't have any flashbacks. Oh, it does.
That's right.
It does.
Maybe I don't know that movie well enough. But...
It.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump
starts and then the whole thing's in flashback.
Yeah, it's all.
What is up with that?
All flashback. Life is like a box of chocolates, and then it's just flashback after flashback, and you don't know where the hell you are.
It kind of goes in order. You sort of can tell where you are.
Yeah. This is sort of an order. Yeah, he talks about Jenny and running, and all this stuff.
That's a good synopsis of that movie. Yeah, it's very good. You know everything you need to know. Spoiler alert. Hello.
Oh, God. Yeah, good old Tom Hanks when he stopped being funny and started being unintentionally funny. All right. Should go back to the Burbs. Flashback to the Burbs. That's what he should do.
Yes, exactly.
We're all agreed on this. Everyone in the whole world. Okay, Bravo. What does Bravo say?
Well, there are plenty of stories where the whole thing is a flashback. Beginning with some intense scene and then stopping it with narration. Like, you're probably wondering how I got here. And then going into the hour before. Then 3 hours before that, and so on. A reverse narrative?
The question is perfect in that voice.
Time I almost died. Yeah. It is. I want to tell you about the time I almost died. That's why there's a Denzel Washington movie nobody knows. I can't remember the title, but it was good. Underrated. Bravo goes on. I go with the axiom, spring forward, fall back. Not only does it tell you about daylight savings time, but it also means only do a flashback if it propels the story forward.
Yes, that's a good way to go. Though, even then, say you have the setup to The Hangover, which is all told in flashback. It's not all told in flashback. I'm completely bullshitting it. It's not all told in flashback at all, but it is about flashbacks. There are flashbacks are used in order to explain why characters ended up in situations or whatever. Oh, how did we end up on the roof here or whatever, all drunk and there's a tiger wandering around. What happened? Where's the groom? And they do flashbacks in order to sort of propel the story forward. It takes them to the next scene. Like it almost gives them clues about, oh, we have to go to this place next because I have a memory that, we have something here, or I've got a ticket I vaguely remember getting married or something, and then they go to the marriage chapel. Yeah, so that is used to propel the story forward. Yeah, but...
And at the end of that movie, you get the actual flashback in that epic scene over the credits where they find the roll of film.
Yes, and that's
all the pictures from the night they forgot, and was hilarious at the time. I haven't watched it again since it was in the theater, but at the time, oh my god, I laughed so damn hard at the pictures that revealed what went on and everything.
What really happened, but
this incredible, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the adventures they had. But even with that, when you get those little flashbacks, I still find myself more engaged in the present than the flashback. So even though they're quite brief, I still want to know what's the proper linear pathway that's moving forward now. And the past sort of gets in the way of it, even when it's done well. So Tance does have a point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it seems like she's specifically talking about a certain thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, other than Kill Bill, there aren't a lot of examples coming to mind of that. But yeah, she's got a point there. Yeah.
She says her reply to Bravo is, I would not call that a flashback. That's an alternative narrative progression in my book. So Tance is moving the goalposts. Trying to be
becoming a German, first of all, apparently. And then moving the...
Exactly. And they always win the World Cup, so they're allowed to...
She's the drunk at the end of the bar, sort of like calling us all down.
She is. All right. Sorry, So you have a response to this thread as well.
Well, should I read it?
You should.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a flashback that didn't work for me. I'm sure there are tons of them. The non-flashback is usually better, I think, where the history of and between the characters is alluded to but not shown. So we see their POV on things rather than seeing the actual history play out. There were some brilliant ones on Breaking Bad, and now Better Call Saul that illuminate the characters and show how they've changed over time. I dig the short, silent flashbacks that Chris Nolan uses in his movies. Just a soundless flash. It feels like memory also often feels. So he will often do like a flash in Batman Begins. I think he did it in Insomnia. He did it in Memento. He did it where you'd see just a silent thing for maybe 3-4 seconds of just an image.
Batman Begins had a lot longer flashbacks than that.
Yes,
ones about training.
But the silent ones are a trademark of Nolan.
Yeah. How did you feel about the other flashbacks that he had?
Well, Batman Begins was the beginning of his life, and then in the middle of it, you had a flashback of the young Bruce Wayne falling into the Batcave, or falling into the cavern that would become the Batcave, and being scared by the bats down there.
Is that the Nolan one? Oh, right, yeah. There's so many bloody Batman films, I get confused.
There's so many now, yeah, exactly. I haven't really seen the new superhero movies, actually.
You have.
Superman. I have seen the Marvel ones, some of them, but
not
I
the DC
seen,
ones.
Superman, Justice League. Or Justice League's not out yet, but Superman versus
Superman
Batman
movies.
Yeah, they didn't look very... I watched a bit of the first one and Man of Steel, and it was not... I couldn't get into it. It just gave me a headache.
Christopher Reeve, that's Superman.
That movie... Those first two Christopher Reeve movies have their corniness and their silliness, obviously, but they hold up, man. Those are good movies.
That's how you should do that. You don't need another Superman movie.
I think you do, but you need a good one. We'll see what happens. That's another Quackcast, solving DC's problems. Although apparently Wonder Woman is a good movie.
Yes. Everyone loves Wonder Woman, so yeah. Big success. All right. So next up we have Kim Luster. God. No, but before that, I was thinking, say you were talking about, say, we illuminate like characters' histories together and point of views. Now, those can be really cool, those flashbacks. When you see them done in, you see earlier versions of characters, younger versions. So sometimes characters wearing embarrassing clothes, like from the 70s or something like that, which is really fun. I love that. Like a weird hairstyle they might have had, or a huge moustache or something, some embarrassing period in their life. I love that when they show that in comedy flashbacks and things, and point of view flashbacks. So we have a story where, like, some event happens and characters think. I think they did this in How I Met Your Mother a few times. Anyway, and they've done it in some other things, but anyway, characters sort of are trying to remember what happened the night before on some kind of series of events, and when each character remembers back, it's all from their own point of view. So they're the hero of their story, or they're the hero of that little flashback.
Right, that Rashomon kind of narrative.
So, yeah, exactly. So everything is very different depending on who's telling it. And yeah, everything sort of favors that character, and all the other characters are going, "Oh, you're great, you're fantastic, and you solved it," and they're the center of attention. And when the next character does it, suddenly the character previously who was the center of attention is now some idiot in a corner tripping over themselves, and this other character is now the hero of the story. Those flashbacks are fantastic. They not only propel the story forward, they give it a whole new flavor. So that's an excellent way to do it. So
that's if you're sort of specifically commenting on the imperfect memory, the imperfection of memory, right, and of point of view kind of thing. Generally, and you make an excellent point, because generally, if you're not doing that and sort of making a commentary on that and recognizing that reality of the imperfection of memory, then you just are showing something from a specific character's point of view. But if you show it in a movie or in a comic, you show the scene, then it's accepted as reality.
It's accepted as an objective point of view.
Exactly, yeah. So then it's like, I don't know. I can see why. I agree with Tenz's whole point, and I think your point too, that generally doesn't work because of that fact. Like, a character's point of view on something will never be objective. Yeah. One person's point of view will always be slanted or wrong in some way.
Very true, and that's one of the other things is the fact that often stories are told from a limited perspective. So we have, whether it's explicitly from one character's point of view, which often stories are, or whether, you share points of view across a few characters. When you do a flashback, whose point of view are you telling it from when you're being objective? Right. You can break that. You break that whole setup that you've established if you do an objective flashback. So that's not always a good idea to do.
Acknowledge what Tenz calls like sort of non-linear storytelling is maybe what that is. It's an objective flashback. We're seeing, even if it's generally from the protagonist's point of view, so to speak, it's an actual event. So Breaking Bad's a great example. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
Have you? The
Breaking
last
Bad.
Season? Only the
whole series.
Yeah. I've seen all of it except for the last season.
Oh, okay, really? Oh, man, I envy you. Get to see it for the first time. But it'll do it. So you've seen, they'll often have one, not often, but maybe once in a while, a few times a season, a couple times a season. Maybe more on Better Call Saul than Breaking Bad, but they'll have the opening scene, the cold open will be an out of time.
Oh, yeah,
scene.
I remember that, yeah.
The best one, probably Walter and Skyler, when she was pregnant, so you're going back 15 years or whatever, when they're looking at their new house and you see how different they were then as opposed to the present tense of the story. Better Call Saul does the same kind of stuff more often. And Better Call Saul, the whole thing is a flashback. Oh. But done very artfully, but the important moments, like say Walter's earlier business falling apart where he believes he was screwed over by his partners.
Yeah.
They never show that. You never know if that is that only Walter White's point of view, or did he really get screwed over? That's what I like. That's like the truth.
So that's cleverly done. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, that introduce that keeps that ambiguity of character. Like maybe it was his own fault that it fell apart, or like it was his decision to end it. Like we don't really have that revealed objectively.
You got that ambiguity. I remember they did an entire season that had it was all based in flashback. So you begin the season with charred bits of money floating in a swimming pool and bits of wreckage strewn all over the place. And you think, oh my, what the hell? And all through the season, it always flashes forward to that, basically, and then we flash back to the events. So the whole season is what is leading up to what you saw at the beginning of the season and what you keep on seeing throughout, which was really
And I think almost every episode started with that flash forward, right? An objective view of the flash forward of these images that you don't know what they mean. Exactly. And that's, I believe, season 2, and then it ends with the revelation of what...
it was leading up to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
that was an example of someone being really clever with flashbacks and flash forwards.
Yes.
Although it did annoy me at the time.
Although what?
It did annoy me at the time.
Yeah, it was frustrating at the time. I remember too. Yeah.
So now we have Kim Luster, and she says, "Good article. The way I've done flashback in Godstrain is to do borderless panels. It's always sexier when it's borderless. You don't want to see my borderline. The various flashback scenes sort of fade into each other. I thought this depicted the murkiness of memory, sorta, but yeah, I think we kind of impulsively know we should make flashbacks distinctive." Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah, she hasn't given us her typical triple entendre. I tried to get one with the borderless.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you have to force it to happen.
Exactly.
And also, she's telling us how she does flashbacks in comics. And she's the first commenter to talk about that.
Yeah, which is important.
Other than Tense, obviously, creating the article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's well done. Yeah, so you know it's a flashback because it's a different color, or it's borderless, or it's sepia, like Tance mentioned, saturated, whatever. So yeah, it's a technique. Important.
Very cool.
Because you're doing comics, it's a visual way of storytelling, visual narrative. So it's not just writing. You're not just indicating through previously. You're actually showing it. Which is
that's what I think almost always done that, just to keep it easy. Say back then,
5 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, I never get that specific, but I'm just like, this happened before. This is a flashback. Okay, now we're back. And hackiest of the hack.
Oh, that's good though. It's good. All right,
make it easy for people. I'm not here to challenge anybody.
All right, next up we have Mr. Ozone Ocean to tell us about crap. So do you want to do your best, Ozone Ocean?
Sure. Let me see. Flashbacks are difficult for authors to do correctly. In the same way that ears, hands, perspective, or foreshortening are often hard for an artist to get right. So they will just fudge them and hope the audience pass over the issues. It's exactly the same with flashbacks, although the author usually does not realize how bad they are at them. Flashbacks, when not written well, most of the time, are clumsy and nothing more than road bumps in the story flow. When done well, you don't notice the massive gear change and awkward pace change that normally accompanies them. Out of the few really good examples I can think of are stories like Wuthering Heights that are made up of many overlaying flashbacks, where each character, story, or view back in time is just more and more interesting story progression rather than a boring break in the flow that you have to wade through till you can get back to the main narrative.
Oh, very well done. Oh, that must have been a very hard persona to
Michio
maintain.
Kaku. I felt good about that.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, it fits, because I'm intellectual like Michio Kaku. That's
Exactly.
perfect. Yeah, so that was my point of view, that, say, Wuthering Heights, that is a story, a classic, one of the classics of literature, and it's all flashbacks. All these characters are saying, yes, now this happened, blah, blah, blah. Oh, now this happened, blah, blah, blah. And it's, everyone telling stories, and it's really hard to actually know where you are in the present, because everything is like third-hand stories of something that happened deep in the past.
Right.
It's so, yeah, that is one example of it done really cleverly. And, yeah, you don't even really think of them as being flashbacks. And I think they do the same thing in, say, classic, whatchamacallit, The Odyssey. Or, it's called The Odyssey, that's it. Homer's Odyssey.
Right.
Which is told with a lot of different flashbacks. And that's done really well. So people have been doing this for thousands of years. This is not a new technique.
Right.
It has a very long history. And I think all of, I haven't read the Iliad, but I think all of that happens in flashbacks as well. So, all the big
in various
stories,
flashbacks.
Yeah.
Kind of the narrative goes forward and then it cuts back. Okay.
Yeah, apparently that's why they think about it as being a series of lost stories about, there's like a whole myth cycle that's been lost, because all the Iliad is told from people talking about events that happened sometime in the past. I'm ashamed I cannot talk about this authoritatively, because I've never gotten around to reading the Iliad. If we had Pitface and Tanserine on right now, they would just eviscerate us.
Yes.
But
they're more literate. They know how to read.
Seeing we haven't got any authorities, let's just say, yep, it's all flashbacks. There we are.
We're more comfortable talking about Batman.
Exactly. Yeah. Batman can flash his back anytime he wants. Whatever.
What?
If that makes sense.
Okay, Joel Schumacher.
He's the best director of any Flashman.
That's right.
Batman movie
director
ever.
of bat buttocks that there is.
Exactly. All right. Well, next up we have used books. So if you ever want a good flashback, read a used book.
Yes.
Is that clever? I don't know. Anyway, so used books, she says, I do them all the time, but I probably do them poorly. I prefer to frame them with a character relaying the story to someone else. Often it includes a different character remembering part of the story unseen by the other. I tend to put in entire story arc flashbacks when I need a break in the tone. I also like a single panel or single page flashback for characters recounting more recent events. It doesn't break the story flow in the latter case as much as preserve it, in which case putting the event in the chronological point would have messed up the flow, hence having a character summarize the account. Oh my god. She's too intellectual for me to read in a stupid voice. It's just...
Yeah, she always makes good, like, solid points. Kim Luster too, like
Of
well,
course
they're
they
good
do.
writers. And they, that I agree with that. That's kind of what I tried to say in mine, but Usebook said it better, like where a character will recount what happened, or they'll just have an opinion on what happened.
Yeah.
And you can sort of imagine the details. I think that's usually the way to do it. Not a character just recounting,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you don't see it. You sort of know what happened from this character's point of view, but you
don't
it allows for
okay. You don't want to give them too much what do you call it? What's the frickin' word? When you're telling people about what's happening in a story without actually showing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like when people do that too much. Oh, Jesus, what's the...
It's like show, don't tell. It's
yeah.
like
Oh, well.
thing. But I mean, I don't know if if there's a phrase you're looking for. A specific phrase.
There's a
that.
word. It starts with a P. Oh, exposition. It doesn't start with a P. It starts with an E.
there might be a P in there somewhere. In that word.
Exposition.
Expository.
Exactly. When you put too much... Now, I've railed about exposition and the way people misuse it so many times, over and over. That has been... And Tanserine as well. That's been one of our biggest problems. And I've always said, don't tell people every bloody thing. Let them work it out for themselves. They'll thank you. And to lend a lie to that, the absolute... evisceration, the absolute exploding of everything I've said. I've watched this terrible anime called Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere, and they don't explain anything. They throw you right into the middle of this confusing story, and 2 bloody series of this, you barely get any explanation or any flashbacks or anything, and you're lost. It's just I'd love to love this anime series, but I can't because I don't know what's happening.
Love to love you, baby.
Yeah. I don't. I can't fucking work it out. Oh, sorry. We were having no swearing.
Okay, so Breaking Bad again, and Better Call Saul, which I can't wait till you finish Breaking Bad and start watching Better Call Saul. So good, and those series both are created and put together by the same people, and they make the viewer put it together. But I'm not comparing it to this anime. I haven't seen it. But there is something to put together. Like it doesn't answer every question for you. It doesn't have a caption that says 5 years ago when there's a flashback. You have to put it together yourself, or a flash forward. But there is something to put together. It rewards the viewer who thinks it through, kind of thing. I admit, as a writer, I don't have the courage to do that because I know people will be confused.
Say in those shows, they have teams of writers, and they have people going over it and going back over it, through it backwards and forwards, and testing it to see whether that works. And and
then in post-production, again, they have a group of people, like they're looking at it again and going,
They've got good editors. They can cut bits out and make, they've shot all this footage. They can put it in an order that makes the exact sense that they want it to have. But in the example,
and they have a philosophy too. I think from listening to their commentaries and stuff, that they don't want to spell everything out.
So that's their guiding principle.
Yeah, they have that principle. Yeah.
So in this anime, obviously it's an anime, so you do that in a linear way. There's no possible, that you can cut and paste like scenes in anime, but that's usually done by different studios after. It's not usually done. It's only done when back in the old days when they were changing anime for American audiences and things like that. Basically, when you're doing an animation, you don't cut and paste. You just do it all linearly, and once you've got the story, it's in that form to stay, basically. So they don't have someone, looking over their shoulder saying, "Oh, this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense." Once it's already put into work, into production, that's how it's going to be. So yeah, it doesn't have all the checks and balances like something really clever like Breaking Bad does, and it shows. And yeah, it's barely under. Maybe there's someone out there that watches Horizon in the middle of nowhere and can get it totally. But it, just watching it, you think, do I have to read something in order? Is there like a huge manga or an instruction book, like a manual to go through? Will this make sense in some alternate dimension? I don't know.
I watched Excel Saga, which is an anime, and I found it funny in parts too. The character was really funny.
Okay.
Some interesting bits, but I found it to be very much the same as that. I could barely understand what was going on.
Yeah. So you do need exposition. Look, we've gone off a bit of the flashback thing, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, that could be cultural, though. I mean, I think a lot of, like, from what I've read on it online, like, if you know their culture, that culture better, and sort of the tropes of Japanese like screen fiction or whatever,
right?
Then you probably will understand it more than a Western moron like myself.
So yeah, exposition can help greatly in some circumstances. Just to clear
it's a line, man. You got to figure out, because over-explaining doesn't necessarily make your thing better.
Well, one of the speaking of cultural tropes or cultural ways of doing things, one of the specific things in anime is to launch you right into the middle of the story in the first episode. That's one of the things. So you're right into the action, and that builds in the second and third and fourth episode up to the fifth. And then about the sixth episode, usually, or maybe it's the fifth or whatever, then they do a huge flashback. And they
massively
They'll
explain how we got there. That's cool. I like it.
But it's done often in a very dogmatic kind of not dogmatic.
Oh, really? Like rote kind of,
yeah,
like mechanical way or something. Yeah.
It's explained in a very simplistic way. So
all right, yeah.
Yeah, which when you're launched into the story in the first episode, and that keeps ramping up, and you can't really work out where you are, but you sort of can, and you think you can, and you've got some ideas, and then they just go and explain the whole thing to you, and then it's all the mystery's gone. Why did you do that? You really did.
Like what you don't say, what you don't need to say is an important part of it. Yeah.
So in that,
and also you have to sort of understand in those first 4 or 5 episodes, you have to get the characters to some degree, obviously, and understand what they want now and where they're at now, at least somewhat, or else you're just not going to watch. You're just people are going to drop it.
You pick up your own working knowledge of it, so that you really don't need a full exposition of every single thing, told to you in a very simplistic way. So there, like you said, there's a balance. Don't tell us too much. Don't tell us too little, because we do have to know what's going on. But
it's exciting. It makes me excited to talk about this stuff. It's like very, very cool to try to figure out what to do as a creator of a comic, and when it works, when it doesn't. Sort of. It's a really cool.
Exactly.
It's very, very, very cool subject.
The whole mechanisms behind writing is a really interesting thing, to know how to write better and write well and not lose your audience through bad writing.
And then thinking specifically in terms of webcomics, like you can, you have to think about how are people reading webcomics, and like what do you want to cater to? Do you want everyone? I have the old collections of the newspaper strip Little Abner.
Oh, really?
Which was in the 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond, but it's way back when. It was a daily newspaper strip. And so often, like then you get to read them all, Yeah. And so you're reading like an entire year of strips in one book kind of thing. And it's funny how many of the first panel of the 4-panel gags are exposition, just like sort of repetition of what just happened, because what if this is someone's first cartoon? They just opened the paper today. You have to explain where you're at, and sometimes it's like a hilariously long explanation needed in the first panel
of something you just read 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, you're just like, it's like literally you can look up in book form and see it right there. So it's kind of funny, but it's how people read things, like how people consume things is part
exactly.
of it.
It might have been a case where because you had to buy the papers in order to read the comic, so maybe they hadn't bought it for a week.
Yeah,
or a month or something like that. They buy the paper now and they want to know what's happening in the comic in order to be caught up and not be lost and then drop the whole cartoon because of that, which could happen. So yeah,
I mean, in the world of the web, like generally you can click back and see it. So you wouldn't want to, obviously that'd be silly to sort of explain everything.
Well, stylistically,
on every page,
you could do it, but not mechanically. Mechanically, it's a waste of time, but stylistically, it would be an interesting thing, harking back to the Little Abner style.
Yeah, and sort of giving just enough so you can so this page is, I don't know, it's tough. That's a tough one too. Maybe another Quackcast.
The art of exposition. Yeah, we could talk about that. All right. Well, this has been the Flashback cast. The Flashback cast. Thank you very much, Mr. Baines.
Thank you, sir.
Cool
subject, and thanks to all the commenters. Oh, and the Drunk Duck Awards.
Oh, damn it! Yeah, the Drunk Duck Awards. Now, the Drunk Duck Awards are slowly happening. At this stage, we're actually voting on the awards themselves. Which particular image of the award do you want to be the award? And the voting finishes on Wednesday the 14th, so the day after this Quackcast. So you better hurry and do it, you bastards.
Yeah, just click on over to the forum and choose which award design you like, and then keep an eye on the forums there to see where the DD Awards are going next. We'll need presenters, probably judges, and submit your comic for your consideration page.
If you want people to give you an award. If you want an award, you have to submit yourself for a review.
That's right. If you want your pudding, you have to eat your meat.
Pink Floyd tells us. So let's just talk about these awards for a second. Who are they done by? You gave me a bloody link, and I have it, and I'm going to go there.
Do you want to go through them? Yeah, you can go over to the forum. I guess we'll have a link below this Quackcast. You can head over and see the, I think there's 5 options.
Let's talk about the options briefly. Okay, so...
Stinger
9 has given us a duck, our mascot duck, the green duck, kneeling on a stool with 2017, and he is chugging back 2 beers at the same time.
That's our drunk duck, baby.
And he's given us a green duck and also a gold, which I love. I love the gold version. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Kneeling on a stool, that's such a weird thing. And next up we have Ashley Greenstone. And Ashley, I think that's Ashley Greenstone, yes, has given us an abstract award. So it's very much like the modern kind of awards you get at a lot of award ceremonies, like made of glass, steel, and I don't know. It's one of those classic kinds of awards, but it's like a almost a cubist representation of the duck. So it's very interesting because of that.
Colors of a duck. Yeah, cubist. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. It's a beautiful design, but any winners, if it is this design, you want to be careful. If you take this on a plane or something, it's got some sharp edges. So just want to be cautious there, just to let you know.
Yeah, it could help you get out of some tricky situations, though. You
could use it as a weapon. Yeah,
exactly. It's pretty dangerous. Speaking of weapons, we have Mr. El Cid, and his award looks heavy enough to break some skulls, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
He's given us a solid bronze drunk duck here. Atlas.
Yeah.
Atlas
duck
holding an egg. It's very clever. With 2017. And bottles strewn around.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And a platinum version. Oh, silver version, he says.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting break. Typical of El Cid to go his own way.
Yeah.
And, of course, Bravo has to comment, the duck shrugged. No, we're not Ayn Randians. What do you think of the El Cid one? That's
of the El Cid design, it's awesome.
It
of
is
course.
Awesome power of the duck.
It's so cool. Yeah, very clever and creative. And, yeah, it's neat.
And that
really
leg shrouds his genitals, too. So, bad luck, ladies.
That's true. You flip that trophy the other way, it's quite shocking.
Quite shocking. Yeah, you know, ducks. The Argentinian duck has the longest penis of any duck in the world. That's a true fact.
Yeah.
And of course, our mascot is the Argentinian duck. So yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so be careful.
Yeah, be very careful. So we have Iron Scarves one, which is a lava lamp. That's really clever.
Like a couple of gooey little ducks in a little lava lamp looking trophy. Very funny.
I think that's the quail, actually, the wrong color, but he's got the little aerial on his head.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. It's the duck and quail in a lava lamp design. Yeah, that's adorable. And very, very, very cool. Very trippy little 3D art from Iron Scarf.
Yeah, 2017. Brilliant.
Far out, man.
Far out. And then we have Fallopian Crusader, who's given us a martini glass with a little duck floating in, and he's rendered the glass...
Like a rubber ducky floating inside?
Yeah. Exactly. He's rendered the glass so beautifully. Look at those overlaying shapes.
Incredible. Yeah.
God. That is amazing. You want to reach out and touch that.
Yeah, it's a brilliant design again. They all are so good.
They are.
Once again, like the last few, they're always all so good. You're like, oh man, you like all of them.
Yeah, I want them all to be awards for different categories myself.
Yeah, exactly. Like I always wish that. Yeah, and these are all great.
I'm thinking
but head on over to the forum and vote for which one you like, and
yeah, and do it. Be responsible. Show your power. Show your influence.
Yes.
Okay. So that pretty much concludes the Quackcast. Quackcast number 2.
Yes.
327. And
Flashback Heart Attack.
Flashback Heart Attack.
Is that an old metal song? That sounds vaguely familiar.
If it's not, it should be. Flashback Heart Attack.
Flashback Heart Attack. I think it is.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.